The inheritance cycle Brisingr. The crimson sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the war-torn landscape of the burning plains. Aragon Shadeslayer stood at the edge of the Varden's camp, his hand resting on Saphira's scaly neck. The acrid smell of smoke and blood still hung in the air, a grim reminder of the battle they had narrowly won. But victory had come at a cost. The revelation of Murtagh as both his brother and enemy weighed heavily on Aragon's mind. And there was no time to process this earth-shattering news. His cousin Roran had arrived, desperate for help in rescuing his fiancée Katrina from the clutches of the Razak. As night fell, Aragon, Saphira, and Roran set out for Helgrand, the dark fortress that served as the Razak's lair. The flight was tense, each lost in their own thoughts. Aragon marveled at how much had changed since he'd left Carvajal, a simple farm boy, with no inkling of the destiny that awaited him. Helgrand loomed before them, a jagged spire of rock that seemed to defy the laws of nature. As they approached, Aragon reached out with his mind, searching for any sign of Katrina or their enemies. The mental probe he sent out recoiled as it brushed against the alien minds of the Razak, their thoughts a roiling mass of hunger and malice. The battle that ensued was brutal and swift. Aragon and Roran fought side by side, their movements perfectly synchronized, as if they'd been fighting together for years. Saphira provided aerial support, her massive jaws snapping up Razak and Letherbleka alike. In the depths of Helgrand they found Katrina, battered but alive. The reunion between her and Roran was bittersweet, tinged with the knowledge of all they had endured, but there was no time for lengthy celebrations. As they prepared to leave, Aragon made a decision that would haunt him for months to come. He chose to stay behind, to hunt down the last of the Razak and fulfill the vow of vengeance he'd made so long ago. It was a choice born of anger and a desire for closure, but one that would have far-reaching consequences. Alone in the cavernous depths of Helgrand, Aragon confronted not just the last Razak, but also the darkness within himself. The battle was as much a spiritual struggle as a physical one. In the end, as he stood over the broken body of his parents' murderer, Aragon felt not triumph, but a hollow emptiness. The journey back to the Varden was long and solitary, giving Aragon ample time to reflect on his actions and the path that lay ahead. He traveled in disguise, witnessing firsthand the suffering of the common people under Galbatorix's rule. These experiences hardened his resolve to see the tyrant king overthrown, no matter the cost. Upon his return, Aragon found the Varden in a state of organized chaos. Preparations were underway for a major offensive against the Empire, starting with the siege of Feinster. But before he could join the war effort, there was the matter of his interrupted training to attend to. Oromus and Glader had left the safety of Duwelden Varden to continue Aragon's education. The ancient rider and dragon pushed Aragon and Saphira to their limits, imparting centuries of wisdom in the precious little time they had. It was during one of these training sessions that Aragon had a breakthrough. Frustrated by his inability to create a truly unique spell, he poured all of his emotion and will into a single word, Brisingr. To his shock, Zarok burst into blue flames. The sword, it seemed, had been waiting for this moment, for its true name. to be spoken by its rightful wielder. This discovery led to a flurry of activity. Hun, the elven smith who had forged all the rider's blades, agreed to help Aragon create a new sword. The process was grueling, requiring all of Aragon's strength and concentration. But the result was Brisingr, a sword perfectly attuned to Aragon's being, blue as Sapphira's scales and eager for battle. Armed with his new blade and bolstered by his training, Aragon rejoined the Varden's forces as they marched on Feinster. The siege was a brutal affair, testing every skill Aragon had acquired. He fought on the ground and in the air, his magic turning the tide of battle at crucial moments. But the true test came when they encountered a shade within the city walls. The battle against this magical abomination pushed Aragon to his absolute limits, drawing on every lesson, every hard-won bit of knowledge. He and Arya managed to defeat the shade. In doing so, Aragon became one of the only beings in history to have slain two shades, earning him the title Shade Slayer twice over. Even as they celebrated this victory, devastating news reached them. Oromis and Glader had fallen in battle against Murtagh and Thorn. The loss of the last of the old riders was a crushing blow, leaving Aragon feeling more alone than ever in his monumental task. In the wake of this tragedy, Aragon made a pilgrimage to Vrongard, the ancestral home of the riders. The island was a desolate wasteland, corrupted by wild magic and haunted by the ghosts of the past. But it was here, among the ruins of a once great civilization, that Aragon uncovered secrets that would change the course of the war. He learned of the Ildunari, the heart of hearts of dragons, which contained their consciousness and power. This discovery explained Galbatorix's seemingly limitless strength and provided a glimmer of hope for those who opposed him. Returning to the Varden with this newfound knowledge, Aragon threw himself into preparations for the final confrontation with Galbatorix. He trained harder than ever, pushing the boundaries of his magical abilities and honing his combat skills to a razor's edge. But even as he grew stronger, doubts plagued him. Was he truly ready to face the most powerful being in Alagasia? Could he bear the weight of an entire world's hopes and expectations? It was Sapphira who grounded him in these moments of uncertainty. Her unwavering faith in their bond and their shared destiny gave Aragon the strength to press on. Together, they were more than just rider and dragon, they were a force of nature, ready to reshape the very fabric of their world. As Brisingr drew to a close, Aragon stood on the precipice of his greatest challenge yet. The final battle loomed on the horizon, a confrontation that would determine the fate of Alagasia for generations to come. With Brisingr in hand and Sapphira by his side, Aragon Shadeslayer prepared to face his destiny. The farm boy from Carvajal was gone, replaced by a warrior, a magician, and a leader. Whatever the outcome, Aragon knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The air crackled with tension as the Varden's forces gathered for what they hoped would be the final push against Galbatorix's empire. Aragon stood atop a small hill, surveying the vast army before him. Humans, elves, dwarves, and Urgals, once bitter enemies, now stood united against a common foe. Sapphira's mind brushed against his, a comforting presence. Amidst the pre-battle nerves, "We have come so far, little one," she said, her mental voice tinged with pride and anticipation. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Aragon nodded, his hand tightening on Brisinger's hilt. The blue blade seemed to hum with energy, eager for the battle to come. As he looked out over the assembled forces, Aragon couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought him to this moment. From the boy who had found a mysterious blue stone in the spine to the rider who now carried the hopes of an entire world on his shoulders. It had been a transformation beyond anything he could have imagined. The losses along the way had been Great Brom, Ajihad, Hrothgar, Oromos, and Gleider. Their sacrifices weighed heavily on Aragon's heart, fueling his determination to see this war through to its end. A horn sounded in the distance, signaling the start of the advance. Aragon mounted Saphira, her scales cool and smooth beneath him. As they took to the sky, leading the charge, Aragon allowed himself one last moment of quiet reflection. "Are we ready for this?" he asked, the question directed as much to himself as to Saphira. The great dragon's response was instant and unwavering. "We are ready, Aragon. Together, there is nothing we cannot face." With those words echoing in his mind, Aragon Shadeslayer, last free dragon rider of Alagasia, raised Brisingr high. The blade burst into brilliant blue flames, a beacon of hope for the forces of freedom. "For Alagasia," Aragon roared, his voice carrying across the battlefield. The answering cry from thousands of throats was deafening, a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the earth. And with that, the final battle for the fate of Alagasia began. The war that had begun with a farm boy and a mysterious blue stone was racing towards its world-shaking conclusion. Whatever the outcome, Aragon knew that the world would never be the same again. As Saphira's powerful wings carried them into battle, Aragon steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The end was in sight. But the hardest part of their journey still lay before them. With Brisingr in his hand and Saphira beneath him, Aragon Shadeslayer flew to meet his destiny. The story of Brisingr had reached its climax, setting the stage for the final, epic confrontation that would determine the fate of Alagasia. But that tale, the story of inheritance, was yet to be told. For now, as the armies clashed and magic lit up the sky, the future hung in the balance, waiting to be shaped by the courage and choices of a once simple farm boy turned legendary dragon rider